Your Ansible playbook fails with no such file or directory for a file that clearly exists. The culprit? The command module doesn't expand or home. Let's break down Ansible Command and shell modules, how it works, and the exact mistake behind that failure. The command module is the simplest. It runs a command directly without a shell, so no expansion of home or pipes. The shell module runs through /bin/sh, giving you pipes, redirects, and variable expansion. Raw is for bootstrapping hosts without Python, and script copies a local script to the remote host. All four are not idempotent by default. You must use creates or removes flags. The fundamental difference: command runs the executable directly, while shell invokes a shell first. This means shell expands environment variables like home, supports pipes with, and handles redirection. But that flexibility comes with risks, shell injection, and non-idempotent behavior if not careful. Here's a quick demo. The command module prints the literal string home, while the shell module expands it to the actual home directory path. This is a common gotcha. If you need variable expansion, use shell or pass the environment explicitly. The raw module is the escape hatch. It sends the command over SSH directly without requiring Python on the target. This is essential for initial provisioning of minimal systems like Docker containers or fresh OS images. But it has limitations: no idempotency, no fact gathering, and no error handling beyond return codes. Here's a typical bootstrap pattern. Use raw to install Python, then switch to normal modules. Note changed when, false because raw doesn't track changes. After Python is installed, you can gather facts with setup. The script module copies a local script from the control node to the remote host and executes it. It's perfect for complex logic that would be messy as an inline command. It supports creates and removes for idempotency, and you can pass arguments. Here we run a local deploy script with arguments. The script is copied to the remote host and executed with bash. We register the output for debugging. Remember, the script must exist on the control node, and the path is relative to the playbook directory. The creates and removes flags are how you make command, shell, and script tasks idempotent. Creates tells Ansible to skip the task if a specified file or directory already exists. Removes skips if the file does not exist. Without these, every task runs every time, reporting changed and potentially causing data loss. Here's how to use them. The first task creates data only if it doesn't exist. The second removes a temp file only if it exists. This ensures your playbook is safe to run multiple times. One of the most common mistakes is using shell for everything. But Ansible has a rich set of modules that are idempotent by design, handle edge cases, and provide clear error messages. For package management, use yum or apt. For file operations, use copy or template. For services, use service or systemed. Here's the right way. Use yum to install nginx, copy to manage config files, and system to control the service. These modules are idempotent, safe, and easy to read. Only fall back to shell when no dedicated module exists. Both command and shell support environment and dir parameters. Environment sets environment variables for the command, and dir changes the working directory before execution. This is useful for setting proxy variables or running scripts from a specific directory. Here we run a deploy script from /opt/myapp with custom environment variables. Note that dir only affects the command itself, not the entire task. If you need multiple commands in the same directory, consider using shell with cd or a script. By default, Ansible considers a command successful if it returns exit code 0. You can override this with failed when and changed when. For example, if a command returns 1 when a condition is met, you can allow that as a valid success. Ignore errors lets the playbook continue even on failure. Here we use failed when to allow exit code 0, and 1 grep returns if found, 1 if not found, both are acceptable. We also set changed when, false because this task doesn't change the system. Using shell with user input is a recipe for shell injection. If you must use shell with dynamic values, sanitize them with the quote filter. Better yet, use the command module with the argv parameter, which passes arguments as a list and avoids shell interpretation entirely. The first task is unsafe. If user input contains rmrf, it will execute. The second uses argv to pass the input as a single argument, avoiding shell injection. The third uses the quote filter to safely escape the input. Always prefer command with argv when possible. This is the same issue we highlighted at the start. Here's exactly why that happened. The playbook ran a shell task that executed mkfs, ext4dev/xvdf without a creates flag. The engineer assumed the command would fail if the file system already existed, but mkfs does not check, it overwrites. The result, all 12 application servers had their file systems wiped, causing a complete outage. The command module ran mkfs, ext4 without a creates flag, so it reformatted the file system every playbook run, wiping production servers. The fix was twofold. First, we added creates =mnt/data to the shell task, so it only runs if the mount point doesn't exist. Second, we replaced the shell task with the file system module, which is idempotent by default. We also added a pre-check using stat to verify the file system state before formatting. Now the playbook is safe to run repeatedly. This is the exact line that caused the production wipe. No creates flag, no idempotency guard. The command ran every playbook execution, reformatting the disk each time. Always use creates or a purpose-built module for destructive operations. This is the exact mistake from our incident. The shell task runs mkfs, ext4 without a creates flag, so it reformats the disk every time the playbook runs, even if it's already formatted. Always add creates or use a purpose-built module like file system. If you use command with echo home, it will literally print home because there's no shell to expand it. Use shell or pass the environment variable via the environment parameter. The raw module does not support creates or removes flags. You have to implement idempotency manually with when conditions based on stat results, but stat requires Python, which you're bootstrapping. For bootstrapping, this is acceptable because it runs only once. The creates and removes flags for the script module were added in Ansible 2.5. In earlier versions, these flags are ignored, so the task always runs. Check your Ansible version with Ansible version before relying on this feature. The article mentions using command with argv to avoid shell injection, but doesn't show a full example. Here's a concrete snippet that passes arguments as a list, ensuring no shell interpretation occurs. The raw module does not support creates or removes because it bypasses the Ansible module system and executes commands directly over SSH. To make a raw task idempotent, you must manually check for the desired state using a preceding raw command, e.g., which Python 3, and conditionally run the install command. The article shows warn, false to suppress curl warnings, but this also suppresses deprecation warnings about using shell for tasks that have dedicated modules. Use warn, false sparingly, and only when you are certain no module alternative exists. To debug command shell issues, add VVV to your Ansible playbook command to see the exact SSH commands. Use register to capture output and debug to print it. Also test the command manually on the target host with the same user to verify paths and permissions. Let's run through some common interview questions. Difference between command and shell? Command runs without shell, shell via /bin/sh. How to make a command task idempotent? Use creates or removes flags. When to use raw module? When target lacks Python, bootstrapping. And a few frequently asked questions. Can command expand home? No, use shell or environment. Is raw idempotent? No, implement manually with when. Should I use shell for package install? No, use yum or apt modules. Let's recap the key takeaways. Use command for simple executables. Use shell only when needed pipes, vars. Always add creates removes for idempotency. Prefer purpose-built modules over shell. Ready to go deeper? Up next, Ansible Dynamic Inventory, then Ansible Galaxy and Collections, then Ansible Tags for selective execution, and Ansible Amazon Web Services automation. Find them all at thecodeforge.io. Thanks for watching. The full article and code examples are covered in detail at thecodeforge.io.